Hello and welcome to the complete guide to low bar squats. So if you're unsure of the difference between a high and a low bar squat, then basically what it is just the position on your back, whether you have the bar sitting on top of your traps or whether you have the bar sitting on top of your rear delts. If you are still unsure, have a look at this position I'm going to cover today, which is the low bar. If it looks similar to your position, then please do carry on with this video. If it does not, then please move over to the high bar squat video, as this might be more appropriate for your squat. So, a low bar squat position looks a little something like so. As mentioned, we're going to sit the bar on top of the rear delts. So it's going to be roughly around here. Okay, so that would be a low bar squat position. Okay, now we have that established, we're going to talk about our setup. When using the racks, you want the bar to be roughly at around shoulder height. This just allows you to take the bar in and out without hitting any of the safety equipment. Okay, if you are taking the bar out of the heavy load and you hit the safety equipment, it can obviously put you off your lift and potentially in some worst case scenarios actually hurt yourself. So again, the setup is important. If you have safety arms, please do set them up. You want to be roughly aiming for about mid-thigh with those. So let's talk about getting underneath the bar. Two things we're going to look at. I want to look at obviously barbell position. So we want to find a spot where it's nice and comfortable. Like I said, ideally that's going to be roughly around the top of the rear delts. And the hand position, we want to bring that in as close as we can within comfort. Okay, it's all good and well having your hands really close, but if it's not comfortable at the shoulders, then it's not a good position for yourself. Just take them out wider until you feel more comfortable. Okay. With this low bar position, it does stress the shoulder rotator a little bit more than, say, a high bar squat position would. So you may find yourself having to go a little bit wider. If you do high bar squats, you're going to try out low bar, you might find that you go a little bit wider than normal. Again, that's absolutely fine. Another benefit to going closer in is it allows us to flex our back muscles, predominantly the rear delts again, to give us a better shelf. We're going to talk a lot about the shelf in this first part. Basically what I mean by shelf is, if we take my finger here, this would be our back, thumb here is the rear delt. What we're trying to do is flex this rear delt nice and hard, so we have our back and the bar sits in here very nice and secure, okay? So we're trying to get this out as much as we can so the bar has somewhere nice to sit on, okay? So it might just take a few goes, so just jump in, find the rear delts, hand placement again, close within comfort, and then stand. And we walk out, ready to go. Now, what you might see compared to the high bar squat is I am ever so slightly leant forward, okay? We'll go back to that analogy of this L. If I'm stood up tall here, the bar's sat there, it does still have the potential to roll out the back there, so you're still just relying on that rear delt being flexed. Now if I actually change the angle of my torso, I can create a bit more of a V shape, so the bar's going to sit there a bit nicer and a bit more secure. So when coming under the bar, you may find yourself ever so slightly forward when you walk out and get set, which again isn't necessarily a bad thing when we come to performing the squat, which we'll talk about now. Alright, so let's talk about the squat. So first things first is footwear. You'll notice here that I'm wearing flat shoes rather than my Olympic weightlifting shoes. This because I don't need as much forward knee flexion as I would with a high bar squat. I don't actually need my hips and shoulders to be in line as much with this one than I do a high bar squat. However, if you do find the benefit of a very sturdy platform, stability from left to right, then please do give the weightlifting shoes a shot. You might find you enjoy them. If not, try with flats. So, as mentioned before, what we're going to do is we're going to get underneath the bar and we're going to get that back position. So I'm coming under, rear delts flexed, hands close within comfort, lift up and out. And again, as just mentioned, I am lent ever so slightly forward. Now it really is ever so slightly. If we come too far and you feel weight into the low back, you've gone too far. We literally just need to break this slight straight line when we're stood up. Foot position wise, it's going to be different for different people. If you're on the heavier scale or have bigger quads, then you might want to go wider, maybe shoulder and a bit width. If you're about medium size, then again, you're probably going to want to go roughly about shoulder width. in for the time being. You can go roughly about shoulder width. And then toes, you want to turn maybe roughly out 20 degrees or so. Again, foot placement and how wide and how much you turn your feet out is going to be all very individual, so I can't offer you a one-size-fits-all squat position, but do play around during your warm-ups to figure out what position feels best. Now let's look at the squat. So again, coming under, lifting up and out, get my feet position. Now from here, we want to initiate this squat with our hips first. So as mentioned before, we want to soften the hips, and this is good because when we start, we want to start with the hips. We want to get to the point where you feel the weight into your glutes, hamstrings and low back. Then from there you can bend the knees. The goal here is now to get the belly in between the legs, while obviously hitting depth. And up. Again, one more time. Hips first. Once you feel the load in your back, glutes, then bend the knee. So you'll notice I'm much more in a bent over position at the very bottom compared to a high bar squat. That just being the weight is further down the back, so I need to lean forward to bring that bar back in the center of mass. A good way to check this is to film yourself from the side. And again, we're looking for a straight line with that bar, which lines up roughly in the middle of the foot at the very bottom position. As I mentioned, we talked about depth. What we're looking for with depth is that your hip crease goes below the knee. So if you're coming down and you finish here, that's too high, hip crease is above the knees. You need to carry on going until the hips are below the knees. Then you may stand. In powerlifting, if you do not squat to depth, you will not be given a lift, you will be not given a score. If you're bodybuilding, you want to be able to stretch the leg as much as you can, to contract the quad as much as you can, to build as much muscle as possible. If you're looking for a strength aspect or strength conditioning aspect, there's two ends of the spectrum which we won't cover in this episode today. But yeah, in the descent, things to focus on is breathing into the belly this time instead of the chest, because we don't need that tall thoracic, although we do want to keep the back nice and neutral. And to spread the legs and get the belly in between the legs would be my biggest giveaway at this point. On the return, obviously what you're looking to do, similar to a deadlift, is to come down, use the quads out the bottom, and then bring the hips forward. You're almost trying to lean back with that weight so you can use your back most effectively. So that is the low bar squat, guys. If you do have any questions or queries, then do drop me a message. If you want me to check out your technique and give you some critique, and again, please do send in those videos. I'd be more than happy to get back to you. I hope you found this interesting, and I'll see you in the next one.